Welcome to our webinar for today on TIA success made simple with Aware and TEKSready Prebuilt Tests. In today's webinar, our team will consist of Jason Martinez and myself, Armando Sierra, as our hosts. And joining us today, we have some special guests from Region 10 Education Service Center representing TEKSready, Courtney Stevens and Andrea Richter. So thank you all so much for joining us. And now let's take a quick look at the agenda that we will follow today. First, let's talk about the roles and rights in Aware. We're also going to talk about test type management, author assessment settings, a new update to selecting standards, and lastly, a quick word about TEKSready from Region 10. And with that, I would like to send it over to Jason to get us started. Jason, take it away.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So we're going to talk really about local assessment management in the kind of arena of TIA, really from a security standpoint. This is not only for TIA type assessments. Obviously, when we talk about TEKSready here in a little bit, that'll be kind of in the same vein. But these are generic settings that a lot of them were created with a TIA kind of thought in the mindset, but it doesn't have to be only TIA related. So this is also just good information about knowing about any assessment, but really thinking about in the TIA world where we're trying to possibly maybe keep those tests a little more secure from the teacher. If that's the case, this is kind of where that is aimed. First, we're going to talk about roles and rights, because obviously if you're creating the test, let's say that they're a TIA specific test, pre-test or whatever, and you're creating that with either the campus level access or district level access, depending on who the creator is. If teachers have that same level of access, if they've been giving the rights to do that, then obviously those tests are not secure because they can actually log in and see them. So the good way to kind of prevent that is to do like a roles and rights type audit. And really what you're looking for is that create local assessments test right. And so that's the name of the right. It's either going to be associated to either the data administrator or campus administrator role if it's a built-in role. And then obviously if your district is doing custom roles, it'd be tied to that. And you can do that roles report by running the next slide there, Armando. And so if you go into the security settings, if you're an administrator, system administrator, you can run a roles and rights report and run, if you want to run the roles report to see who has those overall roles like data administrator or campus administrator, or obviously if you have a custom role, you can run that report there. But once again, you're looking for that right. So when you run those rights report, you're looking for that create local assessments test right. It's going to show you that right. It's going to show you the campus, or it could be all campuses or multiple campuses that those staff members have those rights to. And so obviously you're looking for primarily teachers here. If you see teachers that have been given that right over the years, which I think is probably very common for a lot of districts, especially those that have used Aware for many, many years, this might be a chance for you to audit that, maybe make some adjustments. The summertime is the best time to do that, but there are pros and cons, obviously, to removing rights from people that they've had in the past. If I'm a teacher that have been given campus level, school level rights, or if it was a district level right, and that gets removed from me, I no longer have access to even the tests that I created in the past if I created them with those levels of security. So you do want to be very intentional and cognizant about this, but obviously the summertime is when you want to make those adjustments. Like always, if you run this rights report and you have some concerns and you want to reach out to us, and we'll try to help you make those decisions on what does this mean and how maybe can we adjust it. And Armando put in the chat is training at eduphoria.net. Okay, next. All right, so after that's done, so it's really, we need to start with roles and rights and make sure that is done. Then the rest of the settings are really what's going to come into play if those things are right. If roles and rights are wrong, then really this other stuff doesn't really matter. And all the rest of these things, and also including roles and rights, these are not requirements. Every district is going to have different testing philosophy on when it comes to who has access to what. And we understand that, but we're just going to give you some recommendations on what's common. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfectly fit your district. So let's just start with a test type. So a lot of districts out there are creating test types specifically for TIA. This gives you more controls on the upper level of the test. So that way, within the test itself, we don't have to be so concerned necessarily about some of the settings in the test itself, because if teachers don't have access to the test type at all, they can't see the data from it at all. Obviously, they don't have the ability to create a test at that test type because we kept it maybe at the district level only. Then that helps us kind of really be sure that things are happening the way that we're happening. Now, obviously, the people that are creating the test have to make sure when they're creating that test that they choose the right test type. But there has to be a test type there for them to choose. And so, one option, one recommendation might be, let's go ahead and have a specific test type that is guided straight toward our TIA assessments. And after you create the test type, these are those test type settings. And like I said, you can uncheck that top checkbox. So what does that mean? View options, allow teachers to view this test. It's not viewing the test itself. They can only view the test itself, once again, if they have the roles and rights to do so. Here, it's actually viewing the test data. So we can actually keep teachers from viewing data on the test. And it's truly with that one top checkbox. If you uncheck that checkbox, then in quick views and single test analysis, those things, the teacher would not have availability to even see the test itself. Now, you don't have to keep that checkbox unchecked forever. It's something that you can turn on and off. But in the short term, you might want to uncheck it, keep that data completely secured away from teachers or whatever. The second checkbox also applies to teachers. It is on the profile. So the student's profile that test and scores history. And so those are kind of two different areas that you could choose. Once again, these are not, don't say Eduphoria said. I mean, these are options that could help you in making sure that you have your data secured. So those first two options. And then really the most important option to me in the test type settings is that can be used for school level testing, which you see beside there is also applicable to team tests. So teachers have the ability to build team tests. And let's just say, once again, roles and rights were kind of confused and mixed up with us. If we know that they don't have district level, even though we might have given them school level testing for different reasons, which absolutely could have been applicable in the past, still could be for you guys how you do your testing. If we at least know they don't have district-wide access to create local assessments, then that checkbox being unchecked for school level testing will keep that away from them, even though they may have campus level access. So this is one of those things to where we may not have to remove all that campus level access because there might be too many implications of bad things that we don't want to get frustrated and they can't see their test in the past. As long as they don't have district access, we could do it this way and they still would not have access to those TIA assessments.
Okay, Jason, we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One question is, can you change a test type after an assessment has already been created?
Yes, you can so in the author tab itself, when you select the checkbox beside the test, whether it be one test or multiple tests, there'll be a little drop down at the top, and we may show this if we get to time later. But in the author tab, if you select multiple tests or single tests, there'll be a tab at the top, right where the filters are on the left side, and it'll say actions. If you'll hit that drop down, then you can change test types right there. Now, you can change test type in the actual test. So, like if you want to do one test at a time, you go into the test on the general tab, you can actually change the test type right there. But if it's something we've already created, 50 tests and we want to change them, I wouldn't recommend changing 50 at a time, one at a time. You can go select all 50 in the author tab if you can filter down and find them either by name or whatever, and then you could mass change that test type. So yes, you can do it after the fact. Absolutely, either one at a time or in mass.
Okay, one more question. If we remove teachers, does that mean that they cannot create any assessments for themselves, for their team or classes? And this
No.
is specifically about roles and rights.
Yeah, no. Teachers theoretically, and once again, if you've been Aware customers and used Aware for 15 years, In the past, a long time ago, I'd say 8, 9, 10 years ago, we did not have team tests. They didn't exist. And so we might have given them school access because obviously they were helping, we're a smaller district. They were helping us build our unit assessments or CBAs or whatever. No, they do not need any additional access to build team tests, and team test data can be seen by everyone. Once again, if you have a whole bunch of teachers that have had school level access for years, I'm not saying that you have to take that off. I'm saying we want to make sure it's school level only. And if it's school level only and that's working for us, that's fine. Just make a test type like this that you're seeing on the screen and make it only available for district level. Even though they have school level, they would still not have access to the different district level test. To me, that's the kind of workaround to where we don't want to take all the rights that we've given in the past. If they have school level only, then we're good. We're okay. We don't have to change that. We just have to make the test type available for the district level only. One additional thing down here at the bottom, you probably don't want to allow score summary. You don't want to allow post-assessment activities. You probably are not going to use AI. Hopefully, you're not using AI scoring for your TIA assessments, but those check boxes down there as well. That's why we're showing those.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Let's continue going.
Okay, so also obviously we're going to be talking about TEKSready, but this applies to all item bank partners or whatever. You want to make sure that those items that we're going to be using on our assessments, if we're giving them an aware, that obviously those are secured. And so in the item bank settings, the set default security, this is where you're going to make sure, go through and evaluate where do we have these items and where are they allowed to be seen by, once again, what level of staff. So even though they may have school-wide access, right? We may have given them access at the campus level. If we make this available only at the district level, only district level staff that have district level rights would be able to access the items or the pre-built assessments. So you see items in the bank is one checkbox here, and then below that you see pre-built test access. You want to make sure you have both of those set, probably only available at the district level, like you see here on the screen.
All right. Thank you, Jason. So that was kind of the setup of things, getting things set up with, oh, sorry. That was kind of the setup of things, getting things set up with the test types and roles and rights and having that kind of look at that as well. And so now we can begin talking about copying the pre-built TEKSready tests and or any other pre-built tests that might be available in your all system. So you might see some additional pre-built assessments in there from either Bluebonnet or CRIMC and or Lead Forward rubrics, or even star release items as well, and potentially any custom item banks that you all have uploaded into your all system. In your navigation panel, you can navigate to pre-built tests. As a reminder, you must have the appropriate right to create a district local assessment. And then you can use the filters at the very top right here, where you can go ahead and narrow down your focus about whether it's the item bank that you want to look at or the appropriate grade level and or subject as well. And once you make those selections, the pre-built item bank test table, the table that you'll see behind it, will update and display the appropriate results. You can either preview the assessment by clicking on the title and see some of the information about the grade level, the subject, and the amount of questions. You can also see the preview of the actual question itself, and then you can also identify the DOK or the complexity of each question or depth of knowledge of each question, as well as the appropriate learning standard. And if you hover over any of the learning standards, it will display the actual learning standard for you on the screen as well. Once you are certain you want to create a copy, you'll click that create a copy option on the bottom right-hand side of that little window, and you'll be able to proceed with filling out the appropriate information. In addition, if you already know that that is the assessment that you want to make a copy of, you can see on the very right-hand side of the screen that you'll have an actions column where you can go ahead and copy it as well. Okay, so I see.
I'll answer it.
Okay, thank you, Jason. All right. And so Once you do that, once you click on create a copy, you will see a very familiar modal or window that you are normally able to see when you're authoring an assessment. And just know that we do highly encourage you all to have a good naming convention that is clear, that everyone can kind of identify from as well. So you may want to adjust the naming convention that you see in here, but this is the default naming convention. And you'll also see the appropriate subject areas that you can select from, as well as a grade level. And then that same test type that Jason was talking about earlier, you have that ability to click on this drop-down menu for the test type and select the appropriate test type name, whether it's TIA pre and post test or whatever you want to call it, TIA tests. You can go ahead and do that as well. And then you can make that appropriate selection. Just as a reminder, teachers, if they were not given any additional roles or rights, they will only see teacher tests to start off. Just keep that in mind. You also are going to be able to see all of the different options for setting your standards as well as your school, selecting the schools that this assessment is going to be assigned to. And then you can also go in there and adjust your cut scores for your performance levels at the very bottom as well. And so just so you all know, we have updated our ability to select standard sets. So this option, once you all click on it, you all are going to see something that looks similar to this. It will automatically start to filter based off of the subject area and or grade level that you've selected from the actual window itself, that window that we just saw a moment ago. And then you'll see the appropriate standards that are available within your all site here as well. And then you can go ahead and select them. If you needed to select multiple standard sets, you do have that option to make those selections using the checkboxes on the left, and you'll see them populate up here on the top as well. So once again, this is a new feature that I believe just got pushed out last week. So please have a look at that. And if you have any questions, please let us know about those questions as well. Okay. As a reminder, a best practice is to preview each question. So I don't see that, screenshotting here, but preview all the questions. You want to make sure that it's operating the way you would expect it to work. And you can do that either in the online test settings, so where you see all of these settings, or you can do it next to the question under the questions tab as well. You can click on the preview icon. In addition, think about who do you want to proctor this assessment. There is really no right or wrong way of doing this. It's going to be completely up to you all how you all want to set it up. But you have a couple of options here. First, you have what is probably most common, which is teacher proctored, which is this option here. This is going to mean that the teacher is going to go in there and they will make the assessment available to their rostered students. And if you select the administrators can proctor, anyone with the administer local assessment right can make the assessment available to those students. So that could potentially be the test author at the district level that wrote the assessment, or it could also be some users at the campus level that can make the assessment available to their students as well. More than likely, you do not want your students to view their submitted responses after they take the assessment. This setting is also determined when adjusting your test type settings. And so when Jason was talking about the score or view score summary, this is that same option that's here. If that was turned on at the test type, this is going to be where you can control it here. If it was disabled at the test type, you wouldn't see this option available for you to select here as well. If you use question randomization, it randomizes all questions and all answer choices all of the time. If questions are linked to a resource like a passage, the questions will be randomized within the linked resource. As a reminder, if a student logs out and logs back in, the questions will re-randomize. Their question one will no longer be question one. The answer choices will also re-randomize as well. Also, when analyzing the data, it will always appear in the order that it was authored in. So whatever question was question number one when you authored the assessment, that will be the question number one when you're analyzing data. Tests can be prevented from being reopened by turning on this setting right here. This will not let the test proctor reopen the assessment for that student. So just know that if this is turned on, that test proctor can't reopen that assessment for that student. It's kind of like on Star, once they submit it, that's kind of already submitted. You can't reopen it. Last but not least is you can use lockdown browser provided by one of our partners, Respondus, to keep the students in the assessment window and prevent them from exiting it and searching for answers. This does require some setup, and the district's technology team may have to install some applications on Windows and Mac devices and or extensions on Chromebooks if you all are utilizing Chromebooks within your district. If you enable lockdown browser without the technology team provisioning the devices, students will not be able to take the assessment. So we want to make sure that we're very clear on that. Lockdown browser has to be set up by the technology team in order for them to actually see the assessment and then open it on their specific devices. In the administration tab and under collection settings, you have preview settings where you can either allow teachers to preview the online test or not. The default is that they can, but more than likely you will want them to see, you will not want them to see this for TIA pre and post tests. You can also hide item images from analysis, i.e. quick views, item response analysis, a quick view that is available to you all, as well as single test analysis. And lastly, in general settings, you can restrict your teachers from seeing constructed response questions and text entry questions, or seeing all questions when they enter answers in their administer section of the navigation panel. Or you can also disable access to enter answers. Remember, if there are extended constructed response questions, or what we call constructed response questions in AWARE, they have to be scored by the teacher. So they would have to go into the administer panel and they would have to enter answers for that specific question. All of this to say, these are some best practices for TIA pre and post test settings. It is also recommended to create a process or document for your team to follow in setting up the appropriate settings and to-dos for your district. Are there any other questions that you all might have about pre-built tests or test settings? Jason, do you want to add anything else?
No, I don't think there's any questions, but if you have any, while obviously listen and you have questions about what Region 10 is going to say, but if you have any additional questions, please post them in the Q&A and we'll respond to them.
Yep. All right. And with that, now I want to go ahead and let our partners from Region 10, Courtney and Andrea, go ahead and just have a little bit of time to talk here.
Great. Thanks so much, Armando. The Eduphoria team did a great job kind of covering the process and some of the frequently asked questions that you guys send our way when it comes to ensuring that your assessments are set up to best support your local assessment needs. But just a couple of reminders. I know that Jason or Armando said this, but it's really, really important that you review our assessments before administering to students. We want to make sure that that the assessment matches your scope and sequence, that the teachers have had the opportunity, based on your scope and sequence and your administration windows, to teach every standard that we've included. And especially if you've put that district created assessment on your TIA application, even if you're using our tests, you can absolutely modify them. And I want to reiterate, the same thing with the extended constructed response or short constructed response items. If that's not something that you have a plan for reviewing, you're going to want to modify that assessment. And so please be really careful when going through those assessments and ensuring that we've tried to develop these tests to best match the TEKS and match a statewide need, but every LEA has a different kind of philosophy and a different scope and sequence, and how these assessments fit within your own system is up to you. And so hopefully we've gotten you 80 or 90% of the way there, and then it's just that tiny bit of customization to get these tests finalized and ready to meet your needs. I do want to remind you that the administration window, according to the TEA website for these assessments, is within the first 9 weeks of the start of the course. So, obviously for a one semester or course that's a little bit of a wider window, but hopefully that would be your next step is you have those first 9 weeks to get these assessments scheduled. And then we just want to remind you of 2 resources that you should have access to. The first one is that bit.ly link, the TRE guide. That is our implementation guide. It has links to a lot of the help documents that the Eduphoria team mentioned this morning, but also some of those other frequently asked TIA questions regarding our assessments. So please make sure that you have that and are referencing that as you are getting ready for back to school. And then you can always go to TEKSready.com to access our blueprints, as well as find our contact information if you need us.
All right, Courtney, we have one question that just came in. Can someone from TEKSready address the new 26-27 assessment release timeline? We are hoping to use some assessments in August that are not yet released.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let Andrea kind of talk about where we are.
Awesome.
Hi, yes, most of them are posted. This year, the difference in our tests, they won't say 26, 27, they will say Form A at the end. So when you get on Eduphoria and you search by TEKSready, anything that says Form A are our new assessments. We had a little bit of a holdup on our CTEs. It was a standards issue. Anybody that does CTE knows they like to change their standards every 32 minutes. And so we were trying to get those uploaded. So CTEs are about to be rolling out. I know Spanish 1 is probably going to roll out maybe in the next day or two. And so we're putting finishing touches on the ones that you cannot see. But I believe all BOIs for science, social studies, and math are posted. And then we'll get English 1 and English 2 posted ASAP as well.
Well, I feel like we got some inside information there, so thank you so much for sharing that.
No, you're welcome.
That's awesome. And then last, we have your all's team. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm Courtney Stevens, as we said, the assistant director over TEKSready here at Region 10, as well as a lot of other things. And then this is our team. We have Andrea. We have a couple of new consultants that joined us this summer, and they're getting up to speed and helping get those assessments out to you, as making sure that they're perfect, and then they get to you as quickly as possible. And so we have Andrea, Mabel, and Vonda, and we're super excited to have them on our team. If you have any questions, that info at teaksready.com goes directly to our email. So we'll be able to get back to you, within a day. And then you can always, if you're having an issue or need any support with TEKSready, you can call our help desk. The phone number is there on the screen. My team knows Eduphoria like the back of their hand, and they know TEKSready. And if they have a question, they can always transfer it to one of the consultants as well to ensure that you get your questions answered. So I know that TIA can be an overwhelming program to be over. So we're here to support you, and we want to be on this journey with you, and happy to help as much as we can.
All right, Courtney, Andrea, thank you all so much for joining us today. We are super excited to have you and also be partnering with you all. As many of you all know, we love to partner with you to scale your impact. As we work with our district partners this year, we're doubling down on what matters most, your success. Our training, customer success, and partnerships teams collaborate closely to deliver the resources you need when you need them. Whether it's on-site training, virtual sessions, our teacher learning site, webinars, online help guides, customer success support, or account-related questions, we are here to support you as a true partner every step of the way. If you have any questions about any of the options on the screen, contact the specific email listed or reach out to training@eduphoria.net, and we will get you connected with the right team. If you haven't done so already, make sure to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and YouTube. Also, scan the QR code on the screen to stay up to date with upcoming events, news, and updates. If you haven't already, make sure to stay updated with upcoming webinars by scanning the QR code on the screen. Also, all of our webinars and other great content can be found on our YouTube channel. And with that, I'd like to thank Jason and our special guests from Region 10, Courtney and Andrea, for joining us today. And on behalf of today's team and all of Eduphoria, we would like to thank you for joining us on today's webinar about TIA success made simple with the Aware and TEKSready Prebuilt Tests.